What is the meanest thing you've ever said to someone then instantly regretted? Had a teacher in HS that had lost an eye when he was a teen. The class is super quiet and we are all working on something. He's walking back and forth in the room between all the desks, and as he walks past me, he just playfully snaps me with the lanyard in his hand. I got the words out and then my heart sank. It's on now, you know that, right? You better sleep with one eye open. The worst part was that the entire class just erupted with laughter. We had a really good friendship, so he took it pretty lightly, and I apologized profusely after class. He ultimately thought it was pretty funny. Just watching the realization of what I said hit me. I still see him around my little nowhere town from time to time. Awesome guy. Had a teacher with a lazy eye and accidentally asked once if she was calling on me or the guy next to me. She had this bad habit of just looking at you and nodding when she wanted you to answer, rather than saying your name or pointing. You think she would have gotten into the habit of not relying on eye contact as her primary way of indicating who she was calling on. Still, felt super bad about it because it came off like I was mocking her lazy eye. Have a terrific mate who, when we were about 15, had terrible acne. The poor guy. I was trying to get his attention in class one day, but he was just so absolutely zoned out that he was totally unresponsive. I said his name a dozen times, his nickname, etc, etc. Eventually I just blanked and said, "Hey pimples," and he heard me right away. For like a week after that in class he always tried to keep his face down. I'm sure I must have said meaner things, but he was such an all-around amazing bloke. It was one of the worst feelings of my life. We are still great friends 4 years later, and I wouldn't trade him for the world. But I hope he doesn't remember that comment, because I sure as hell do, and still think about it from time to time, and always feel like utter trash. A colleague of mine who's engaged, and I were sharing in some light-hearted banter one day at work. We were passing one-liners back and forth, and I was getting ready to walk home. The skies looked like they were about to open up and unleash hell on my commute. So he said, "I hope it rains on your way home." In return, I said, "I hope it rains on your wedding day." I've never seen someone look so hurt in my life. I worked with this guy who I just didn't like. He just constantly rubbed me the wrong way. His first question to me was to ask if I was married, then proceeded to immediately ask me if my wife was hot, then show me a picture of his wife. The dude was just off. One day he made some remark about me being a Star Wars fan. I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. Of course I'm a Star Wars fan. He made some crack about me going to Star Wars conventions, which I actually have never done, but whatever. So I said, "Yay, I love going to them. Last time I took your mom, she was dressed in the Princess Leia slave costume." He said, "That's not right. My mom is dead." To which I instantly replied, without thinking, "Oh, that explains the smell," and walked away. It's the only time I've insulted someone and actually felt bad about it. Back in the late 70s I got into an argument with a friend. I got pissed and wanted to piss him off as much as possible. I had heard the word Harelip used in jokes, but had no idea what it was. I only knew they were the butt of jokes. So I called him a hair-lipped mofo. Yep, he has a cleft palate. The look on his face immediately confirmed for me forevermore what the word hair-lip means. He walked off before I could get another word out. I still think about and regret it, and will for the rest of my life. We saw each other and never had harsh words after that. But I knew the friendship was gone. In my math class, there's a pretty introverted guy at my table. He doesn't talk to many people, but around us, he's pretty friendly. I should also add that he's autistic, which probably doesn't help in talking to people. We were getting back our test scores, and we both received the same score, 65%. That dropped my overall grade from almost an A to a really low B. However, he began boasting about getting better grades than me, which he did. I said back to him, "You may have better grades than me, but at least I have friends." Instant regret. I don't think I'll ever forget his face. I was hanging out with friends in high school and playfully kissed one of them on the cheek. Later we went to dinner, and when I was paying I kissed my $20 bill to kiss my money goodbye. The guy working there tells me I shouldn't do that because money is so dirty, and in response I say it can't be that bad, I kissed this guy earlier. This was 21 years ago, and I still feel like an ass for putting my friend down just because I was embarrassed to be called out by someone I would never see again. And instead of just admitting I made a mistake right there and then I lost a friend instead. There was a guy working at this drive-thru I was getting lunch at that had one arm. He had handed my food and drink to me while my payment was processing. As I was putting my food away and drink in the console, he was waiting on me to take my card. So I was rushing and said, "Sorry, I only have 2 hands," and his face said it all. I didn't realize what I said until I said it, and I felt like the biggest asshole ever. I was turning left at an intersection into a one-way street with 2 lanes. The light signals had just been changed, meaning that the cars turning right went at the same time. I drifted too far into the other lane, not being used to this, and another car honked at me. Fair enough, I was in the wrong. We pulled up at the lights next to each other with our windows down, and a woman in the backseat yelled, "Get yourself a real license, you stupid bitch." Without thinking about it, I just replied, while imitating her accent. It was a very lower class accent. "Get yourself a real haircut, a real education, and if you have enough left over from your welfare, then a nose job." She was speechless, and I was really shocked at myself. The lights went green, so I just waved and pulled away, while they sat there in silence. Not my finest moment, but still kind of pleased with how effective it was. It was a really low blow though. Completely below the belt. Back in middle school, I was in the locker room after gym class, and there was one kid with a condition I now know is pectus excavatum. Basically his chest was deformed and caved inward. For some reason, my split-second reaction to seeing it was that he was somehow doing it intentionally, and I blurted, with a very disgusted look on my face, "Whoa, how are you doing that?" I don't recall the kid saying anything, and I instantly felt like trash. Had been friends for a couple of years. We were mid-teens and worked at the local supermarket. We were being silly one night and skipped down an aisle hand in hand. I laughed and said back, quote, "OMG, you have tiny hands." I looked at our joined hands and was mortified. One of her hands was tiny and only had a thumb and 2 fingers. I started apologizing profusely, but she just laughed. She was actually happy that it doesn't stand out, and I obviously saw right past it. That was more than 15 years ago, and we still get along well. Terribly late to this thread. Freshman year of college, a guy looks sullen in the cafeteria. I sit next to him and start a dialogue. Me, "AI bro, why you look so down? Who died?" Him, "My mom." Me, slides out of my seat onto the floor and apologizes profusely. Haven't used too many expressions like that since. It was around last Christmas. I was stressing about setting up the festive dinner when our old dog wanted to look at what I'm doing. Mind you, old means almost 18 years old German Shepherd mixed with Slovak Chuvach. 99% deaf, and with bad joints on his rear pair of legs. Can't turn around fast enough if he's standing in your way. I was pacing around the house, and I got super annoyed with the dog standing in my way and looking at me. So I just kinda kept walking and shoved him aside. The look of betrayal on him will be in my brain forever. Only couple hours later I realized, what have I done? I got teary eyes, apologized to him, and bought him extra senior treats and few months worth of premium chow, which made his fur shine like 10 years ago. Don't hurt those you love, even in small things. I worked night shift in the hospital, and there was only one pharmacist for the entire building. We had to anticipate when our continuously running fourth meds would run out and send a request for a refill well in advance. I picked up a day shift, and there was a pharmacist whose job was just to go through the unit and check meds and make refills. I didn't even have to ask. I had no idea day shift had these luxuries. He comes by with a cart of meds for me, and I said thanks. You're pretty handy to have around. And he just glared daggers into me before silently turning around and walking away. That's when I noticed his lower arms and hands were very deformed. I felt awful. I hadn't even noticed. And I still cringe about hurting this man's feelings when he was just being helpful.